I said, I'm not an actor. And we were arguing. I said, I'm a fighter that does a bit of acting. So I'm very aware of who I am and what my capabilities are. I'm never going to get an Oscar. I'm never going to be treading the boards doing Shakespeare. But if you want a good, solid bad guy that's going to beat the shit out of someone, then die, I'm your man.
Coming to a UFC broadcast near you soon, which is actually going to be this Saturday, and also coming to a movie screen near you. This man's IMDb profile continues to expand. He is the former UFC middleweight champion of the world, who you can see in the new film Den of Thieves 2 Pantera, which hits theaters January 10th. Michael Bisping joins us. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, thank you, Mike. That's quite the introduction. I appreciate it.
I mean, what a cast of characters here. Gerard Butler, O'Shea Jackson, 50 Cent, Michael Bisping back in the fold. How excited were you to...
I don't know how I managed to bullshit my way into this one. You know what? It's an incredible movie. The first one's fantastic, and the second one is going to be even better. And I remember when the director, Christian Gudekas, reached out. It was 2016. I was shooting Triple X at the time. And I thought, what is going on? I'm shooting Triple X. And now he's asking me to be in Den of Thieves alongside the guys that you just mentioned. Of course, it was only a small, little tiny part. It was a cameo at the end, but I set up the sequel, and they always said, "Listen, you're going to be in the second one." And I thought, yeah, that's if the second one even gets made. Of course, it did. I'm telling you right now, it's going to be phenomenal. I'm just in the start of the film, and then I show my face later on. I don't want to give any spoilers, of course, but just to be a part of this is incredible because I was there. We shot it in Tenerife. To be a part of this, and the amount of effort that went into this, the storyline is phenomenal. There's a lot of great action scenes, and just to be a part of it, I'm very blessed.
Yeah, because the first one came out in 2018. People were wondering when the sequel is going to come out, and now it's here. We're knocking on the door of it, and you play the character Conor because, well, MMA and Conor, it also kind of goes full circle. But it's also your character's name is spelled the same way that a casual MMA fan spells Conor's name when they try to trash him on social media. It's hilarious, but that's beside the point. For those getting amped up to see the movie but are supremely interested, Mike, in the ins and outs of the supporting cast, who is Conor? Who is your character? How do you describe him?
Yeah, so Conor was, and by the way, it's got nothing to do with Conor McGregor. Although I did put that together and kind of chuckled to myself when I saw the character's name. I thought, for crying out loud. Listen, he's a bit of a London tough guy, bit of a guy that, doesn't operate within the confines of a law, but he was working at a diamond place as a security guard. So, of course, if you've seen the first movie and you know about O'Shea Jackson's character, when he meets me in a bar, he comes up with an idea. And this is actually all all based upon a true story that actually went down. So when we were in Tenerife shooting this, we had the guys and the police and the investigators that handled the first this actual robbery that the movie said about, sit us all down, give us the history and go through it, because they wanted it all to be as true to life as possible. So as I say, this is it's very, very meticulously done. It's true to life. It's based on a true story. But of course, with guys like O'Shea Jackson and Gerard Butler involved, it's going to be something special. I can't wait to see it. I mean, as I say, I was only in a few scenes, so I'm just as eager as anybody else to see the final product.
Yeah, the scene, obviously, besides yours in the first movie, is the Benihana scene with Gerard and O'Shea. It's just, and the cast of characters that are in the restaurant. It sort of stands the test of time. The more people watch it, the more people get into it, and it's sort of the iconic scene from the film, which is wild because of all the action scenes that happen throughout the movie. People just point to that one. Are we going to have a Michael Bisping Benihana scene in Den of Thieves too?
I wish. Sadly, the answer is no. I haven't got the biggest part. You know what I mean? I'm not going to lie. It's bigger than the first one, but it's not a gigantic role, far from it. But as I said, just to be a part of it, because, I never thought I'd be sitting here talking about bloody acting, right? I grew up in a small town in the north of England, and I made my way into the UFC, and you know the rest of the story. But in 2009, I was offered a movie part out of the blue when Tap Out, when they were taking over the world, probably making so much money they didn't know what to do with it. They started making a string of movies, probably as a tax deduction, I don't know. And they offered me a huge part. And obviously I took the opportunity. I worked with an acting coach. I flew out to Texas. I did it, and I had a great time. And the director said to me at the end, he said, listen, he said, you should think about doing more of this stuff. So I did a little soap opera in England called Hollyoaks. Then I moved out to California in 2011, got myself an agent, and just kind of did it, just went with it from there. Always took it with a pinch of salt. I'm very aware of who I am and what I'm capable of, but I'd be lying if I didn't say it's not something that I'm passionate about, not something that I do enjoy, that I find challenging. The stuff that I do, of course, it's always kind of action stuff, so playing those kind of characters is a lot of fun. I get to use my skills in martial arts and get to help to choreograph fight scenes and things like that. And as I said, the more I've done it, the more I do fall in love with it. But at that same time, I don't get carried away with it. I know I never refer to myself as an actor. I did a film, comes out soon, called Red Sonja, and I was having an argument with one of the actors, Luca Pasqualino, who I'm very good friends with now, because he called me an actor, and I said, I'm not an actor. He said, what are you talking about? Look at your IMDb. You've done like 15 films. I said, I'm not an actor. And we were arguing. I said, I'm a fighter that does a bit of acting. So I'm very aware of who I am and what my capabilities are. I'm never going to get an Oscar. I'm never going to be treading the boards doing Shakespeare. But if you want a good, solid bad guy that's going to beat the shit out of someone, then die, I'm your man.
There you go. Call his agent. Make it happen.
Exactly.
We also, Ciryl Gane's in the movie. Rico Verhoeven's in the movie. There's a lot of combat sports representation in this one. How cool is that for you to see in a pretty big film like this, not just yourself, but other fighters getting their opportunities in the space as well?
Yeah, of course it is. Christian Gudicast, I mentioned him before. He's the director and writer, and he's worked on this. This has been a lifetime's work for him. And he's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu under Rickson Gracie. So he's obviously a huge fan of mixed martial arts, and that's kind of how I came on his radar. Solid guy, great person as well. So yeah, just to, be out there in a foreign country, in kind of not a foreign territory, because I have done quite a few of these now, but just to see some familiar faces was always fun. I'll tell you a quick story. We had to do some weapons training, and the guy that was running the weapons training takes his job very, very seriously, and rightly so. It's, you're handling real weapons and stuff like that. So he was training myself and O'Shea Jackson, and he was treating us like a drill sergeant. He was screaming at us and making us walk properly. And so it looked legit on the film, of course. And he's screaming in our faces, like, if I ever see anyone messing around with these guns, if I see you point a gun at anybody, you are off this set. Anyway, Ciryl Gane was supposed to be on, and his flight was delayed or something, and he showed up late, and he showed up halfway through this session, and he missed the screaming part about if you point a gun. And the man that was running it, he's very, very good at what he does. I'm not saying anything bad about him. It's a very serious job, and it's not a game, when you're dealing with these kinds of weapons. Of course, there's been accidents over the years. But Ciryl missed the debrief, if you will. And he says to him, have you ever held a gun? And Ciryl, in his French accent, he goes, yes, but of course. And he grabs the gun and he points it in his face, and goes, pa, 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 pa. And he starts like acting like a spy and doing like forward rolls and stuff. And the guy just had smoke coming out of his ears. He was so mad, and I was just in hysterics because this guy had just given us so much shit for so long. But anyway, Ciryl Gane's in the movie, as you say. Rico Verhoeven, who I got to know a lot better. He's an absolutely awesome guy, and a few other familiar faces as well.
You are here, so I do want to touch on some mixed martial arts stuff, things that are going on in the news. Please. Because Joe Rogan recently said he thinks Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall is being seriously discussed, and he's hearing Jon wants around $30 million for the fight. I believe you said he should get it, and I 100% agree with you. I have a hard time believing this $30 million number, Mike, and here's why. Because you're a prize fighter. Dana said almost 4 years ago that Jon wanted $30 million to fight Francis Ngannou. And as you know, being a prize fighter, yesterday's price is not necessarily today's price. I think the number is going to be bigger than that. And I do believe the UFC should absolutely pay that to give us this fight. So thoughts on that? And do you believe in your heart of hearts, Michael Bisping, if you had to bet a lot of money on it, would you bet on Jon Jones versus Tom Aspinall happening in the year of our Lord 2025?
Well, I definitely believe the fight will happen this year. Seems like Jones is up for it. It seems like the UFC want it to happen. I mean, they said to Tom Aspinall, it's a done deal. It's going to happen. And it would just be such a shame if that fight didn't happen. I think it's going to happen International Fight Week, Las Vegas 2025. But what do I know? I'm not basing that on any inside information. Excuse me. I'm not basing that on any inside information. I know what you know. When Joe Rogan said apparently he wants 30 million, good for him. I hope he gets paid that money. I hope he does, and I hope we get to see the fight. And if it isn't 30 million, maybe it's around that. Maybe it's 20 million, 25. Maybe it's more, like you say. I think the demand for this fight will be there. I think it's incredible that in this day and age, we're talking about these kind of fight purses being involved in mixed martial arts. I said this in my video. When I started MMA, I'm talking pre-UFC, when I first started like regional level MMA, everybody said, if you're getting into this sport for money, you're in the wrong sport. And I was like, holy cow, this is the only reason why I'm getting involved in this sport. And of course, I did pretty well. And now we're seeing people, obviously Conor McGregor's done fantastic. Lots of people in the UFC have become millionaires through this sport. And now we're seeing, people like Jon Jones getting what was only regarded or what was only seen possible in like the high level superstar boxers, those kind of paydays. Now Jon Jones is getting that, and other people will be down the line as well. I think it's a great sign of the growth of the sport.
100% agree. Some positive stuff here. Your old buddy from The Ultimate Fighter, Matt Hamill, says that he's hearing for the first time in his life. He's hearing his family. He's hearing his kids. And you guys obviously have a history, but there's a ton of respect there and all that. What was your reaction to seeing that?
I was just so happy for the guy. I mean, yes, on the show, we had kind of a tumultuous relationship. It's just competitive rivalry. I was young. I looked at Matt Hamill as the only guy that could potentially beat me. And, because of that, I'm a competitor, and I was young and I was immature. And, he had his ways and I had my ways, and we kind of clashed a little bit. I don't know if that was all in my head or not, but that was a long, long time ago. We fought. It was a very close fight. It was 2007, almost 20 years ago. But since then, I've wished him nothing but the best. And then when I heard that, and we've shared a few tweets back and forth over the years, all nice and polite. When I heard that, I was just overjoyed. It's incredible what technology is doing these days. I know there's talks about new eyes and things like that. You never know. Elon Musk, shoot me one of those new eyes and I'll be back in the octagon before you know it. But for Matt Hamill, what a beautiful day. I mean, when I heard, I heard the sound of his children and his parents and just things like that. These are things that we take for granted. I can only imagine how that must have felt for him. And I could genuinely not be happier for him.
Couple last things. You're obviously going to be calling UFC Vegas 101 on Saturday, which is a great card. But everyone's got their eyes on January 18th, which is 8 days after Den of Thieves 2 releases in theaters. UFC 311 in Los Angeles, the Intuit Dome. What a card. We get two big title fights. Arman Tsarukyan challenging Islam Makhachev, their rematch for the lightweight title. And we got Merab Dvalishvili defending his bantamweight title for the first time against Umar Nurmagomedov. We got Jiri Prochazka versus Jamahal Hill, and the list goes on and on. What a way to start the year, Michael Bisping, huh? Holy smokes.
Yeah, they're not messing around. I'm very intrigued by the main event. Of course, it is a rematch. This time the belt's on the line. Arman Tsarukyan took that fight on short notice. He was only 22 years old at the time, and he pushed Islam. It's not like Islam just smoked him completely. And of course, with it being short notice, you've got to think that he got tired. So coming into this one off a full camp, now being 6 years older, growing into his body, being stronger, having more experience, and just generally improving all around, I think he's going to do very well. However, he's not the only one improving. Islam Makhachev, of course, has improved over the years. We know Teddy Atlas's expression, when you become the champion, you get 30% better overnight. He's really grown into being a champion. If he beats Arman Tsarukyan, he will be the greatest lightweight of all time, according to the numbers. That will be 4 title defenses. Right now, there's only BJ Penn. Who are the other ones? BJ Penn, Benson Henderson, and Islam Makhachev. Oh, and Khabib Nurmagomedov that have defended the belt 3 times. This will be a 4th and a historic defense for him and make him, on paper, the greatest lightweight of all time. Of course, co-main event, Merab and Umar, that's a good one. And Jamahal Hill versus Jiri Prochazka. I'm excited for that one. Jiri is wild. He's unique. I love everything about this guy. he is open a little bit with his wild style, and Jamahal Hill's under a lot of pressure. He's going after everybody on social media. He's come after me a little bit as well. The man's in fight mode. He's under a lot of pressure. He wants to become the champion again. We aren't PR trained as fighters. You know, we get plucked from obscurity. We come from, you know, tough backgrounds and childhoods, and we're figuring it out and we're fighting our way. All of a sudden, you know, we've got the audience of an entire world and we say some dumb shit. I've done that over the years. Maybe Jamahal Hill's doing that. I'm not saying that, but he's in fight mode. So we know he's going to show up. It's going to be a great fight. And as you say, what a way to start the year.
Last thing I wanted to ask you, because you're part of the broadcast all the time, and the big story heading into 2025 and eventually getting into 2026 is the UFC's TV deal is coming up this year, and they've had a tremendous run with ESPN. But as you know, everybody is going to want a piece of the UFC. WWE just debuted on Netflix last night as we record this, and it was actually incredible to watch. We have no insight to this, Mike. How do you think this plays out? Do you feel like the UFC will be on multiple platforms, like you'll be appearing on multiple networks? Or do you think someone's just going to swoop in with a floppity jillion dollars and just have exclusivity with the UFC?
I literally have no idea. It would be nice to be on multiple platforms, I guess, because it's more exposure. But it's business as well at the end of the day. I mean, who knows? If somebody wants to come in and write a gigantic check, then maybe that's what happens. But honestly, I have no idea. This will come as no surprise to you. Hunter Campbell and Dana White do not run these things by me. You know, I show up, I do my research, I call the fights. I'm very blessed and happy and proud to be a part of the show still after all these years, almost 20 years with the promotion now, fighting and working for them and commentating. But things like that, I don't concern myself with. So, you know, I'm just a fan of the fights. The business side of it, I don't know anything about.
Are you going to watch Darren Till box?
Oh, yeah. Come on. I'm trying to get him on the podcast because, you know, who's he fighting? Anthony Taylor. You know, I'm very, very eager to talk to Darren because he's been, you know, Darren's not backwards in coming forwards. And he's got a lot to say, certainly right now, about Tommy Fury and things like that. So hopefully I'll be talking to Darren soon. And I've always been a big fan of Darren. He's a funny guy. He's a good guy. He's a tremendous fighter. So, yeah, 100% I'll be watching.
I wish we had more time, Michael. We'll have to do this again down the line, but congrats on all the success. Congrats on getting the sequel here. See Michael Bisping and a whole cast of characters on Den of Thieves 2 Pantera in theaters January 10th. You'll have a good time. Thanks again, Mike. All the best to you. Appreciate it.
My pleasure, Mike. Thank you.